Right, I think we can get started. We do start off with some housekeeping items, so I'll get into that. So again, thank you for joining us today for our open house on the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension project. Today's open house is focused on construction updates for the elevated guideway and the tunnels between Jane Street and Mount Dennis Station, and an update on community benefits and support measures. Right, we're going to start off, as always, with a land acknowledgement. Metrolinx acknowledges that we connect communities by building and operating transit within the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat peoples, for whom these lands continue to have great importance. Treaties between First Nations and governments cover these lands, and the promises contained in these treaties remain relevant to this day. Metrolinx and its employees are committed to understanding the history of these lands and the continued impacts of colonization, and take responsibility for actions to advance reconciliation. Metrolinx will continue to seek the knowledge, expertise, and experience of Indigenous partners and commits to doing business in a manner that is built on a foundation of trust, respect, and collaboration. All right, next I'm just going to go over some engagement guidelines. As you know, attendees will have their videos turned off and microphones muted. Our session tonight includes a question and answer component at the end of the presentation. Some of you may have already submitted your questions on the event page. If you've got a question during the presentation, please go to www.metrolinx.com/ECWE events, ECWE_events to get to the event page. At the bottom, you'll see a Slido and you can submit your questions there. As a reminder, we'll prioritize answering questions that are related to the content being presented tonight. So that's the section between just west of Scarlett to Mount Dennis Station. And this event is being closed captioned and French translation is available upon request. Right, with me today, I'll introduce myself. I'm Amin Gale. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension Project. I've got with me Varney, who is our Communications and Public Engagement Lead for ACON, who is building the elevated guideway. Eves, who is our Assistant Superintendent with ACON. Jonathan, our Environmental Manager with ACON. Noelle, our Community Engagement Lead with Strawbag. And Jacob, our Assistant Tunnel Manager with Strawbag. Right, as a refresher, for those of you who aren't aware, the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension Project is a 9.2 kilometer new transit line. There are 7 new stations, 5 connections to other transit options, including Up Express, Kitchener GO Train, GO Transit, TTC, and MyWay buses. This project will see 37,500 more people within walking distance to transit, 23,600 more jobs within walking distance to transit, and up to 69,700 daily rides. Right, we've started construction on a lot of the segments of the project, including the elevated guideway, which a lot of you may have seen if you've been in that section along the Humber River. So I'll start with the ATC1 project. Those are the tunnels between Runforth Station to just west of Scarlett Road. So those are just nearing substantial completion. We've got our elevated guideway between Scarlett and just east of Jane, which is well underway. We've got our east tunnels between Fergie Brown Park and into Mount Dennis Station, which is also underway, that awarded to Strawbag, and the guideway awarded to ACON. And our station's rail and systems contract is currently in procurement and should be awarded later this summer. Right, as I've just gone over, we've got our 4 contracts. So our 4 contractors, West End Connectors, are just about nearing completion. We've got Strawbag delivering the east tunnels between Fergie Brown Park and Mount Dennis Station, ACON delivering the elevated guideway 1.5 kilometers between Scarlett and just east of Jane, and our station's contractor, which has not yet been onboarded. Right, with that, I'm going to hand off to Varney and the team from ACON to go over the elevated guideway construction updates.
Thank you, Aman. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick recap of what has already been completed with the elevated guideway project. As Aman explained, it is a 1.5 kilometer elevated guideway that is currently being constructed that will run east of Jane Street along the north side of the Eglinton Avenue West, just before it heads down to the underground connecting to Mount Dennis Station. So for the completed work, we have completed borehole drilling works. This work is to provide important information about the soil and the rock conditions so that the construction is built on the sturdy ground. The next work that has happened is the subsurface utilities engineering. This is to map out the underground utility structures so that the design does not interfere with the underground utilities structure. The next, what we have completed is the site fencing. This is to maintain site security while ensuring public safety. And in fall, we also cleared a tree and we have also completed grubbing. This is to ensure to accommodate the elevated guideway construction. We have also completed erosions and sediment control installation to minimize environmental impact and protect the local environment near the construction site. In winter, we have also completed site grading and prep work. This is to make sure that we are leveling the ground and preparing the ground for construction, including clearing, grading, and compacting the soil to facilitate the construction. Next slide, please. I will hand the slide over to Jonathan, who's our environmental manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Varney. So as we continue on with construction, one of our key environmental focuses remains erosion and sediment control installations and maintenance. The basic goal of these controls is pretty simple. We're trying to keep as much sediment on site as possible and prevent it from washing into nearby sensitive areas like the Humber River or any adjacent wetlands. So this helps us protect the work site, the stability of the work site, but also preserve water quality and prevent issues with nearby aquatic life. You'll see us using a combination of temporary and permanent control measures throughout construction. These will include silt fencing, mud mats, core logs, and erosion control blankets. Each of these will play a specific role depending on the stage of construction that we're in. And basically, because we're working very close to the Humber River and ultimately we'll be restoring this area, it's critical that we keep control of erosion from day one. So next slide, please. So we have single and double row silt fencing and mud mats on this slide. So to break down each of these, first off, the silt fence. This is basically like our frontline defense. It's essentially a fabric barrier that allows water to pass through but traps sediment from running off site. Depending on the risk level or sensitivity of a specific location, we'll use either a single row or a double row of fencing. The double row just gives an extra layer of protection, especially near the river or downstream of a very steep slope. In between that double row, we also install one of our core logs, which I'll explain on the next slide, but essentially it further reinforces that installation. We also have mud mats on site. These help us control what leaves the site on the tires of our equipment and the trucks coming in and out. They work by essentially forcing the trucks to bounce a bit as they drive across the mat, shaking loose the mud from the tires. This greatly reduces the amount of mud that ends up on the public roads or sidewalks. In combination and with regular street sweeping and site maintenance, we can minimize a significant portion of the off-site impacts related to sediment. Next slide, please. So beyond the fencing and mats, we also use what are called core log dams or core logs. These are biodegradable logs made from coconut fiber. They're great for stabilizing slopes and banks, especially near water. Over time, vegetation will actually grow around them or through them, strengthening the slope naturally. This adds long-term stability. So this is one of the ways we can actually integrate temporary controls into long-term restoration. And then finally, we use erosion control blankets. Essentially, it's a protective cover laid over exposed soil. They serve two purposes. They prevent soil from washing away in the rain, and they help vegetation establish quickly on an exposed slope, which ultimately will hold the soil in place a lot better than anything we can install. You'll often see these installed immediately after we're done grading or in a specific work to lock down that soil as quickly as possible. That's basically it. Altogether, these controls, they work kind of as a system, protecting both our work site and the surrounding environment throughout every stage of construction. I think that's it. Yves, I think it's on to you.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Hi, everybody. So let's have a look at the different structural element of the elevated guideway. Let's start with the foundation. So what's the goal of the foundation? It's to provide a deep foundation that it's embedded into bedrock, ensuring structural stability, load-bearing capacity, particularly in section with requirement. So that's basically the element where all the structure is going to lay on. How are we doing that? We drill some large holes into the ground, and after that we place reinforced concrete that support the guideway structure. So you can see the exact machine that we are using along Eglinton Avenue. So you probably have seen it because right now we're not too far from Jane and Emmett. Next slide, please. Then after that, we have the substructures, the substructure element. We have the piers and the pier cap. So that's what go on top of the caissons. So the goal of these are to support the bridge by transferring its weight to the foundation, and on top of so this is for the column, and on top of the column you have the pier cap, which distributes the load eventually across the piers, ensuring strength and stability. So how are we doing that? We are installing some reinforcement cage on top of the caisson. After that, we use a form, steel form, and we place concrete. And to do the pier cap, it's the same thing. We place a reinforcing cage on top of the column. We install a steel form, and then we place concrete. Next slide. So once the pier caps are built, we can start like working on the decks. So the decks, that's the main horizontal structure that supports the transit system and distributes the load to the piers and the pier caps and then the caissons. So how we're building that, you can have a look on the picture. We use a temporary shoring system that allows us to place on top of it the formwork. And once the formwork and the forcework are installed, we place some reinforcing, and then we install the forms, and then we place concrete. Next slide, please. So the previous slide was for the decks. I'd say like 90% of the decks on the project, but over the river, using temporary shoring towers is not possible. So we had to come up with a different solution. So that solution is called the balanced cantilever bridge construction method. That use like it's described in situation where access is limited or when long span bridges need to be constructed. So Aecon will use 2 cantilever bridge travelers to build a bridge from each side of the Humber River and connect the deck at the center of the river. In order not to enter the Humber River, Aecon will utilize the balanced cantilever bridge construction method. So basically what it is it's a method that allows the contractor to work to build a small section at a time, and that traveler moves as you go. So it allows you to travel long distance, and you don't have to impact anything on the ground or over the water. So that's pretty convenient. It's pretty cool to see. Next slide, please. So at Scarlett and Eglinton intersection, we're required to build a retaining wall system that we call a secant pile wall. So the goal of this is to provide a structural support during the construction, and that prevents movement of the soil, improve water tightness, and protects against erosion. So how do we build that? We use the same machine that we use for the foundation. However, we basically build concrete piles that overlap to each other, and that allows to form like a watertight structural wall. So that's what you can see in the picture. Next slide, please. And I will leave that to Varney. Thank you.
Thank you, Abe. In this slide, we are looking at the construction impacts and the mitigations that will be in place for the elevated guideway project. Construction impacts such as for safety, we always ensure that the pedestrian detours around heavy construction areas are enforced, and also adjustment for access to public parks are also provided. Access to local businesses. Business continuity plans such as advertising and maintaining access to local businesses, and also buying locally throughout the project to ensure that we are sustaining the business operations near and around our proximity of the project. Noise and vibration impacts will be mitigated by monitoring the threshold on a regular basis and activities completed during daytime hours only. Lane closures. We will ensure that the signs and flag persons and detours are in place. Mud tracking. This is to ensure that the mud that is in the site is not carried out to the public spaces. We will ensure that the mud mats and street sweepers with vacuum suction will be used throughout the project duration. Dust and air quality. Dust suppression will be used on a regular basis by watering the ground regularly to keep the dust suppressed, which also helps maintain the air quality. Construction debris. We will be providing daily housekeeping to ensure that prevent buildup of dust and construction waste is taken care of. Next slide, please. Okay, in this slide, we are looking at the AECON's community benefits plan and a program that is in place for the Elevated Guideway project. This is our hiring report for since the beginning of the project from 2024 up until now. You can see that we have hired 43% of BIPOC, that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color people in our project, and we have hired about 21% of women. The 36% that you see here in purple, they are people either who did not report or those who do not fall under the category of women or BIPOC. To date, we have invested over $335,000 in the project through local and BIPOC businesses. And we have also invested $254K plus on Indigenous business investment. This is with the A6N, where we use that organization to help clear the trees and do our early works. The 51% of the share for A6N is owned by the Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation, which belongs to Indigenous community. And for community benefits engagements, to date, we have completed up to 31 engagements. This include outreach, presentation, information session to ensure that we are building awareness about careers in construction and also let them know how they can find jobs in such large infrastructure projects such as the Elevated Guideway project. In order to define what we mean by local for Elevated Guideway project, we have defined it by a postal code that has about 11 postal codes you could see here, and any local businesses that fall within this postal code will be considered local to our project. That's it from me, Aman. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm going to hand it over to Noelle and team from Strawbag, Noelle and Jacob, to take us through our Strawbag updates.
Thank you, Aman. It is a pleasure to be here. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Before getting into construction, I did just want to give a little update on Strawbag for those of you who have not been introduced to us. Strawbag is a leading construction and infrastructure company. We are delivering complex, forward-thinking projects across Canada, and as part of the Global Strawbag Group, we bring decades of international expertise with a strong focus on partnership and quality. We work in tunnels to transit infrastructure, roads, bridges, and we build solutions that connect communities and shape the future all across the world. So I'm going to hand it over to our Assistant Tunnel Manager, Jacob, to walk you through some of our construction updates. Jacob?
Hey, everybody. So our first update will be about our tunneling operation. So tunneling began this year in February. Our average rate of progress, it's about 1.1 meters a day per tunnel. So far, we've completed about 75 meters in the westbound tunnel, and we've got about 43 meters done in the eastbound tunnel. Our operations are also carried out 24/7 for tunneling to minimize any delays. Next slide. So this summer, Strawbag will begin piling works at the Mount Dennis station. These piling works will be to create a caisson wall structure that consists of overlapping piles. Every pile, or rather every other pile, will be reinforced with steel beams. Once this piling is complete, the shaft can be excavated. To actually install the piles, a drill rig drills holes up to 24 meters deep that are around a diameter about 1 meter. The auger of the drill rig removes soil, and a hollow metal casing is progressively installed into the hole. Once this progress reaches the required depth and all the soil is removed, concrete can then be poured into the hole, creating the structure. Next slide. Our last update here for construction is the cycle track. Phase 2 of the new bidirectional cycle path on the south side of Eglinton Avenue between Weston Road and Black Creek is now up and running. The new cycle track will replace the existing one that was on the north side of Eglinton during the construction of the Crosstown West extension. Next slide.
Thanks, Jacob. So I'm just going to touch on our noise, vibration, and dust mitigation. Strawbag understands that construction in residential neighborhoods can result in noise, vibration, and dust. Alongside Metrolinx, we're committed to closely managing those impacts throughout the duration of the project. Noise, vibration, and dust levels are monitored around the clock, and data collected helps guide necessary adjustments to our work. Community feedback is an important part of that process, and we remain focused on responding to public concerns in a timely and respectful manner. Go ahead to the next slide. Strawbag is also investing in the local community, so we're committed to creating meaningful community benefits through our work. We're actively ensuring that social enterprises and business owned by equity-deserving groups have opportunities to quote and bid on goods and services related to our project. To date, we have $69,000 in local spends. It's towards office supplies, printing, procurement, and lots of catering. And these are, a lot of it is within the small area of Mount Dennis. In addition to inclusive procurement, we continue to invest in communities where we work through initiatives like food bank drives for the Mount Dennis community and other local support efforts. We're proud to contribute to a stronger and more inclusive local community and economy. Next slide.
Okay, I'm going to take it back from here. So we've come to the end of our formal presentation today in the construction updates, but we are going to move into our question and answer section. So I'll just briefly introduce our panel. While you submit your questions, if you have a question, please visit www.metrolinx.ca/ECWE_events and click on today's event, and then you can use the Slido at the bottom of the page to submit your questions. So on the panel today, we've got, actually, it's just the same people that did the presentation. So we've got myself, Manager of Community Engagement, Varney, our Communications and Public Engagement Lead with ACON, Eves also with ACON, the Assistant Superintendent, Jonathan, our Environmental Manager with ACON, Noelle and Jacob from Strawbag, our Community Engagement Lead and Assistant Tunnel Manager. Okay, so I'm going to move into our first question here, and that is for ACON. Give me a second. I'm going to hand this over to Varney and team. How tall will the elevated guideway be?
I'm going to let Eve answer this question. Eve, please.
So it depends on the location of the elevated guideway, but on average, it's around like 5 to 10 meters high.
Okay. Perfect. Let me just move on to our next one. Give me a second here. And this one is for Strawbag. So Noelle or Jacob, I'm going to hand this one off to you. Can you tell us about what method of tunneling is being used for the east tunnels?
Thanks, Salman. I'll hand this one off to Jacob. Jacob, go ahead.
Yep. So the tunneling method we use, it's called SEM. SEM stands for sequential excavation method. So how it works is basically an excavator slowly removes material in steps. We call them top heading bench. So respectively, they're about 1 and 2 meters in length. Once the face of the excavation is actually exposed by the excavator, we immediately support it by spraying a layer of shotcrete. Next, we start our initial support. This consists of lattice girders, wire mesh, and more shotcrete. And then finally, when all these steps are complete, we install our pre-support, which consists of rebar spiles. And basically, we repeat this process bit by bit until we're done.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Jacob. I've actually got a follow-up question here for Eve. Regarding the length of the elevated guideway, how tall will it be in front of 1A and 1B Richview?
So around Scarlet, it's about 6 meters high to let the traffic go under it. Just above 6 meters.
Okay, great. The next one, will the elevated guideway be lit up? So again, for the AECON team.
I believe this is the question for Metrolinx. Our contract is only to build the structure. The it
Right.
might be a part of the next project.
Yeah, maybe I can jump in. I think that may be a part of our SRS contract, so our stations, rail and systems contract. But we can answer that in future open houses regarding stations. Our next question here is for Strawbag, I believe. Are trucks going in and out of the site right now?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Yeah, they're coming in out of both sites, so Jane Portal site and Mount Dennis on a daily basis.
Okay. Another one for Strawbag. What are the measures taken to observe and monitor vibration when tunneling?
I can take this one. So we have vibration monitors and are continuing to place vibration monitors along active sites. So all of our sites are being actively monitored as the tunnel continues along its way under Eglinton, and it'll eventually arrive at that Mount Dennis station. So they're monitoring the vibration, dust, and noise to inform how we're building the structure.
Perfect. Thank you, Noelle. Maybe I'll take just another second for anyone that might be struggling to submit a question or would like to. You can visit www.metrolinx.ca/ECWE_events. You click on today's event and then you'll go scroll to the bottom of the page and submit your question through the Slido. If you're having trouble doing that, you can also email us at eglintonwest@metrolinx.com. Our next question here is for AECON. Is there anything being done to help maintain the ecosystem in the Humber River during construction?
Jonathan?
Hello. Sorry, I'm just waiting for my camera to come back on. Ooh, you can't see me. Yeah, so the main thing we're doing, I don't know what's going on with my camera, but I am here, people. The main thing we're doing is what we discussed earlier, was the erosion and sediment control measures. That's our current biggest impact on the natural environment right now would be sediment runoff if it were left uncontrolled. So that's our primary number one. That includes significant maintenance, monitoring associated with that. Also hazardous materials management, spill prevention and response. We go through significant efforts to ensure no hazardous materials leave our site and enter the local wetlands, storm systems, anything like that. And then additionally, we are supporting the overall project's species at risk management. We do monthly monitoring of all of our installed bat boxes to ensure that they're functioning as intended, and we're reporting out as per the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks protocols and the permit requirements. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing, but in general, we are, it's just about constant effort and maintenance of the things that we've put in place. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Our next question here, it's also for ACON, but I suppose Strawbeg can also jump in if you'd like. How can we apply to work on this project?
Okay, I'll take on that question. We regularly post our job opportunities on our ACON website. We also provide these job opportunities. We send them over to over 15 community organizations that we currently work in partnership with. And we have also been providing this information to Metrolinx as well, so they can put it on their quarterly newsletter. We work with different types of community organization across Toronto. So whenever there is an opportunity, people from the equity deserving group and also local communities can take part in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Varney. Next one for Strawbeg. Should we be expecting any other major construction?
Jacob, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. No, there'll be no major construction outside of the limits of the actual site. We'll be doing the final structure once the tunneling is done, the lining and the final actual structure inside of the SOE, but nothing outside of the mountains.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. Give it a second. Again, if you've got a question, please head over to www.metrolinx.ca/ECWE_events. Okay, we've got one here for Strawbeg. When will the intersection on Keelsdale open up?
I can take that, Almond. Thanks. So the Keelsdale intersection will be opened according to the requirements of CTS and the city to officially open the Mount Dennis station. So that one is within the city's and CTS's hands. But when that intersection is opening up, we will be sure to put out information online through Metrolinx.
Perfect. Thanks, Noelle. Just waiting for any additional questions to come in. Okay, we've got one question here about the timeline for the Strawbeg project. When will the tunneling finish for the eastern side?
That's a great question, Almond. Jacob, do you want to take that for us?
Yeah, for sure. Should be done by around the end of next year.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. I'm currently out of questions, but if you'd like to submit a question, again, you can do so at www.metrolinx.ca/ECW_events. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. If we don't receive anything, we can wrap this meeting up early. Hey, while I'm waiting, maybe I can let you know how to find out what's going on the project in regards to construction. We've got our notices all posted on our Eglinton Crosstown West extension page. So if you go to our website, you can see our events and upcoming events and notices there. And with that, if we don't see any questions, which we don't, I'm going to wrap this up early. So I'll give everyone back an hour of their evening tonight. Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate you. Have a good rest of your evening. And if you've got questions, of course, in the future, please feel free to email us at eglintonwest@metrolinx.com. We've got our community office at 326 Scarlett Road. We're there Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 5, or by appointment. You can visit our website, metrolinx.com/eglintonwest. Email us anytime at eglintonwest@metrolinx.com, or you can call us at 416-202-8001. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.